Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. We're so glad to have you. Many years ago, our founder, Bill Good, noticed that a lot of advisors were coming to him with a very similar complaint. They'd say, Bill, I simply don't have time to prospect. So, intrigued, Bill launched a series of intense time studies with advisors all across North America. These were likely the very first systematic time studies ever conducted in the industry. And when they were over, Bill discovered something very, very cool and very, very important. Financial advisors are worth at least $1,000 an hour when meeting with interested and qualified clients and prospects. So the next thing to determine was obvious. How can financial advisors spend more time with clients and prospects? The solution, of course, was equally obvious. Get some help so you can delegate all the other stuff. Thus was the team concept born, something that was still a very novel idea when Bill was one of the first to propose it in the industry. Now, we've done a number of time studies since then, and we've discovered that that number, 1,000, is now more like $1,500 an hour. Um, and of course, that's just the average. Many advisors, especially those who specialize in working with high net worth investors, may be worth as much as $2,800 an hour. But what hasn't changed over the years is this. Advisors who maximize their teams, who maximize the amount of support and help they're getting, create more of those $1,500 hours for themselves than their competitors do. So today we're going to talk about how to do exactly that, how to build and maximize your team so that it becomes an engine for growth, because it frees up your time and ensures that you have more interested and qualified people to meet with every single day. Now, to explain how to do this, I'm really thrilled to be joined by one of my absolutely favorite people in the world, someone I've really come to respect and admire and love, Jenny Good Widmaier. Now, Jenny has been with Bill Good longer than anyone who
That's
doesn't have the
correct.
name of Bill Good, but we don't see her on webinars very often. So I'm really, really thrilled that she agreed to join me today. Jenny, thank you again for being with us today. And for those who don't know who you are, please take a minute, introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your history with BGM, and also what you do for us now.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. This is both exciting and nerve-wracking. For those who don't know me, Bill Good is my dad, and I have grown up in this industry and in this company since birth. Today, I work on the back lines and I do the talent management at Bill Good Marketing. So I am responsible for hiring and retaining our best people. Um, how I got into helping advisors is that a few years ago, we had a client who, I don't know, for one reason or another, they couldn't find a CSA candidate. Like it was going on too long. And it was to the point where it was holding up the growth strategies that we wanted to implement with him. So because he couldn't find this CSA to start delegating some of his tasks to, he couldn't move any further. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it for him, and then we can move forward. So it took me 5 days, and I found the perfect candidate. 5 years later, she's still with him. She's now his COO. When he started with us in 2021, he was at 650,000 in production, and today, as of just a little bit ago, he's at 2.4 million in production. So that particular chair that we found for him became a really important part to his growth strategy,
Mhm.
which sort of brings about what we're here for, which is your team is not what supports your growth. Your team is your growth. And so if you structure it in the right way, then you are able to really maximize all of the strategies that can help you double your business, triple your business, quadruple your business. So this particular client is the reason we have a hiring service today, which is what I do sometimes. I very rarely do this for advisors who aren't already Bill Good Marketing clients, but because we sell a growth system, our growth strategies can be strangled by the absence of a team.
Mhm.
So we solved that by having me just do this process. And in the course of doing this process, I have learned a lot about how advisors lose their best people, how they gain their best people, and how to take their good people and turn them into their best people. So I really wanted to share the things that I've learned because I think it will help eventually you become a big, huge, giant producer, which is why we're all here, right?
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Now, before we dive into the topic proper, a few points of housekeeping for you. First of all, we are recording this webinar, so if for whatever reason you have to duck out early or you have to take a call and you miss some parts of it, don't worry, we do have a recording which we will send to you at a later date, so keep your eyes peeled for the email on that. Second of all, we love questions on these webinars, so if at any point you have a question for Jenny, please feel free to ask it either in the Q&A box or in the chat. We'll be monitoring both, and I'll feed those questions to Jenny periodically as we go. And then finally, if you are new to the webinars we do at Build Good Marketing, one of the things we always like to do is to thank you for your time. And the way we do that is by providing a goodie bag at the end of the call. Each goodie bag contains one or more resources you can use to start implementing what you learned today. And Jenny will talk with you about what's in today's goodie bag here in just a second. But to get your hands on that goodie bag, all we ask is that you stick around to the very end of the call. We'll give you a link to a report card that lets us know how we did and what you'd like to hear from us about in the future. And then as soon as you fill that out, it'll take you right to the goodie bag where you can get Jenny's resources. So with that in mind, Jenny, why don't you tell us a bit about what is in the goodie bag today?
Okay, so these are three tools that I use when I am helping an advisor find or resolve a team problem. There being that there are two big problems that advisors suffer from, which is retention and attracting. They were originally spreadsheets that I just sort of put together to help like calculate salary and what is this person worth and what are the red flags that can sort of present themselves and give you a warning that somebody's about to leave or you need to watch what's happening so that you know how to hire, you know how to raise, you know how to attract new talent. These were all spreadsheets that I developed internally. And as we were talking about doing this webinar, I turned them into an app that you can use that we're going to give you at the end. So you'll have you'll have two calculators and a rubric that you can use to help with your team. They're really cool. I'm so excited about
They
them.
are they are really cool. I've been doing these webinars for a long time. I think these are some of the neatest resources we've ever shared. So thank you so much for your hard work on these, Jenny. Now, really quick, I know you wanted to sort of provide a bit of wider context about what we do and what we're talking about here today. So I'm going to let you take that over, and then we'll dive into the topic of maximizing your team.
Yeah. So this is a wheel that Stephanie, our head of growth, and I created to sort of help explain what we do at Build Good Marketing. Um, we essentially help advisors put in the best practices that grow a business. My
Mhm.
dad started by teaching advisors how to prospect, and it worked so well that they doubled, and then they doubled again. And then they had a whole new problem of they had no time to prospect because they had all these clients to manage, or the reverse, which is they had all these clients and, or excuse me, they were prospecting and all the clients were sneaking out the back door. So they didn't have a way to do both prospect and client management. So that evolved into all of the different strategies that as they grew, we developed strategies to help them avoid the dreaded plateau.
Mhm.
So this wheel sort of, you can see that we have client marketing, we have prospecting, we have business management, and we have branding. Around that is content, which is we provide all of the content you need to implement any one of the spokes of this wheel. And then on the internal side, we have a CRM that powers the whole thing. Any of these points can be taken and used to help you grow your business, depending on where you're stuck on your plateau. So because we're talking about team, that's the lower part of the wheel, the business management. Everything that we have done and do centers around the one thing, which is your business. And the hours that only you can spend are given to you by the team who takes everything else off of your plate. So one of the things we want to work on with you is how do you get the best and the most out of the team without totally killing them too in the process. So I think that's a really important part of what we look at is, you know, keeping people happy and healthy and wealthy and wise,
Mhm.
all while running the day to day.
Absolutely. So, with that in mind, let's start diving into it. Let's talk about what we're going to cover today about turning your team into a machine for growth, as it were. When you and I planned this out, I know there were three sort of areas we wanted to, or that you wanted to focus on. So, why don't you take us through a bit about what we're covering and why it matters so much when it comes to having a team that is not only supporting your business, but growing your business, as you mentioned earlier.
Mhm. So everything we're going to talk about today, it rests on three pillars, and each one builds or kind of relies on the other one being in place.
Mhm.
So what we want to talk about first is retaining. How do you hold on to the people that you currently have?
Mhm.
These are important people. They have institutional knowledge, they have industry knowledge, they know the quirks of your business. They know, they know whether or not Mrs. Jones likes ice in her tea or not.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand what their goals are and what their vision is for themselves. So all of these things go into retention. The next thing we want to talk about is I am a recruiter and I poach people from other firms. So I know how to create an offer that will make somebody want to leave and go to a new place.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be sharing my secrets for you to be able to use those so that you know how to craft a good offer and what needs to go into that offer. And you can deploy this in your retention strategy, but also in your hiring strategy.
Mhm.
So it will basically prevent you from being poached when I come looking for good talent. So uh, I might be cutting off my own nose to spite my own face, but you guys are here and no one else is. So you get the secrets. Um, and the final thing that we're going to talk about is you have good people in place. How do you use their talents to the best of their ability so that they have job satisfaction, but then they're also contributing to the growth of your business? So we want to sort of put all of these things together so that you have a full strategy on how to manage your team.
Excellent. So
So
let's start in. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, that's it. That's it.
Terrific. Let's start into them. Let's talk about retention. And I think let's start off with talking about the mistakes that we can often make as advisors, as business owners, anyone in this industry, when it comes to retaining the talent we have. Because I think, Jenny, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's often a weakness with all of us where we look at the status quo and we can't imagine it changing. And as a result, we can miss the red flags, as you mentioned, or we can make mistakes that cause those red flags. And what ends up happening is the talent that we had, the team that we had, could end up flying the coop. And now we're having to rebuild from the ground up rather than focusing on growth. So, talk to us a bit about the mistakes that we can make when it comes to retaining the talent we have and how we can avoid those mistakes.
Yeah. So the first mistake that I see most advisors do is they don't do the math on what that person is worth
Mm.
to their business. Yes, there's the salary. Yes, there's the cost of the benefits, but there's also, like I said earlier, a few of the little things like the knowledge of your business, the applications, like handling the applications in a timely manner so that they don't get sent back with errors. And you have if you sell annuities, you have 20 different providers. How do they know which one to go to? There's all of this institutional knowledge that comes with somebody who's been with you for a long time that you cannot really put a value on it until you actually do the math.
Mhm.
So how much time would it take to retrain somebody who's in this role? How many people would it take to replace this one person? In the example of, for example, in Bill Good Marketing, when my dad stepped back a little bit, it took six of us to do everything that he does.
Mhm.
That's a value that he brought to Bill Good Marketing that we had to step in and figure out how to delve into and replace.
Mhm.
These are unquantifiable numbers that you cannot really assign a dollar amount to, but it's important that you do that math. Because if you have a CSA who's also an ops person, who also does your HR, who also handles some of your payroll, you're going to have to split that among 4 different people to cover the functions. So that math starts to become a compounded number that is expensive. It costs more to replace that person with 4 hires than it would to just give them a substantial raise. So that's the first big mistake.
Right.
The next big mistake that happens is the market sets the standard of salary. This is done through Indeed, it's done through Glassdoor, it's done through salary.com. What happens is this is a business model that thrives on people changing jobs. So they'll do all this market research and they'll do this salary. And I have tested this multiple times in having people go in and actually do the surveys and looking at the surveys later, which is they will increase the price. So if you're paying somebody $100,000 and they go in and they say, I make $100,000, then in many of these outfits, they will increase it by 10%. So now if I have a person that's looking like, what does my role actually make? And they go in and they're like $110,000 and I'm only making 80. Now they've created a gap. They've created some dissatisfaction because they're like, I'm worth $30,000 than what this is. I should go get that job. So you have to keep your finger on the pulse of the market, even though the market drives forward this inflated cost of salary. If you have good people, you want to keep your good people. So you have to know what the market's paying. You have to know what they're seeing. You have to know how to use your own tools and your own budget and your own resource to balance that out. Because you can't always meet the $110,000 salary, but you can make it equally good in other areas by knowing what the market is providing to your people. So that's that's the second mistake. The third mistake is you pay their salary and you pay for their hours. They clock in at 8, they leave at 5. That's their money. You don't pay for their loyalty. You don't pay for their longevity. You don't support their goals. So what I mean by that is there's no reward or there's no share in the growth of the business for them. So if they grow, if you grow, they grow. If you hit a target, they get a bonus. So everything needs to be tied to success so everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, you start paying for loyalty, not their hours. And then the last thing, which is, I think maybe this is my own opinion, I think it's the biggest part, which is you overlook the small things. You don't say thank you. You don't invite them to the meeting. Somebody stays long to put the presentation together and it's kind of like, oh, cool, thanks, got it. But it's no real acknowledgement for the hard work that goes into creating the experience for the client on the other side, or for the team member, or for the office. Somebody stays and they notice that maybe the office needs some reorganization. So they just take the initiative and they do that. It's a small thing, but gosh, it's really important. It really makes a difference. So it's those small things that you just start to overlook and they don't become important, which makes the person feel unimportant. And the things that they do and the small ways they contribute, it lowers the value in both sides. So those are the 4 big mistakes.
I love that, Jenny, especially that last one. And it brings to mind a couple months ago, we had our annual advisor conference, and we had it in Nashville this year. And one of our speakers was a woman named Claire. Now, Claire started out as essentially, you can think of her as a sales assistant for the advisors in her office. But over time, she and the other advisor she was working with realized, you know what, we're spending more time with each other than we do with our own spouses, our own significant others. Because, of course we are. We're working 8 to 12 hours a day. This is not just you know, a hired position. This is a relationship that we built with each other where we're working towards very similar things and we're all putting in so much of our blood, sweat, and tears into it. And one of the things she talked about was how she and one advisor in particular that she was working quite closely with, how they would really take the time to acknowledge the things that each was doing for the other, and all the different ways that they were actually not just doing a job, not just checking a box or filling out, a checklist. They were actually going that extra mile, doing all these little things, putting so much of themselves into the success of this business. And as a result of them, really realizing how important they were to each other, that relationship grew and thrived. And as a result, I mean, they're over 2.5 billion in assets under management now. And what started out as she merely being an assistant, now she is a critical partner in the growth of their firm. And so much of it was realizing how much of what they had was a relationship that was driven by little things. So I think that's really critical that you point that out, Jenny, and I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, she's a total score. Neil totally scored.
Yeah.
That was a great hire. So,
So, with these mistakes in mind now, how do we avoid them and what do we do to prevent them? And I
yeah,
know there were a number of specific things or best practices, as you would, that advisors should be doing in order to ensure they are always retaining talent. So, let's
yes.
go through those.
So, and you can get all of this, you can do this math and do these things in the goodie bag. So grab it because I built this tool for you guys to do this. So the first thing is when you think of your team, think of the person or persons that you cannot afford to lose.
Mm,
If you have a name, then you have to tell me right now that what that person is worth to your business. And if you cannot give me an actual number right now, then you have not done the math. And that's the tell. So, one, know that number and know it all the time. It's very important. So, that's the first really important part. Run your team members through my calculator, and all you have to do is input the salary, their tenure, their experience, and it will give you that number that you need. And then you'll have it. So when I ask you, you'll know. So that's point number one.
mhm,
The second thing you need to do is review the salary gap. The salary gap is what are you paying right now? What is the market saying you need to pay? So ensure that you're paying for the loyalty and not just hours in the office. You are paying for their contributions so that when you win, they win. If you think of it like the salary rewards when someone shows up, that's all it does. It does not reward them for staying late on a Thursday to process your seminar leads. It does not reward them for hand delivering the condolence gift to the heirs of your biggest client. It does not always have to be a bonus either.
mm,
Incentive pay is awesome, especially when it is clear, it is tied to a very clear metric and an achievable goal. But it doesn't have to always be money. It can be a company trip. We have a client that does this that is like the team's favorite benefit. They go for a week and they take a spouse or a partner and the team member and away they go.
mhm,
Um, some do a share of the upside. So you meet all the targets, you get to profit share. That's a great reward. Um, it's it's whatever your team wants. Like that's the critical thing is I internally try to find out what is it that keeps my team happy. For us, it's a fridge filled with snacks and lunch and beverages and stuff like that. And we top it up every month from a big, huge order from Costco. So
mhm.
it's not like it doesn't have to be a big, huge thing, but it has to be what they want and what they ask for. So it's like these are a couple of ideas, but it's going to be really up to you to determine what makes them happy. So find those things that make them happy because a happy place, people don't want to leave it. They don't want to go someplace where they're going to be like, cool, here's your job. You're the robot on the computer. Let's go. They're
Mhm.
going to want to feel like they're contributing to an overall and they have goals and they have metrics they can achieve and they have things that they can do that are satisfying to them career wise. And in return, it helps you grow the business. So those are some of that's that's my biggest recommendation on paying for loyalty, not your hours.
Right.
And then my favorite is the small things. Fix those. They are so easy to fix. They are being attentive to the small things that people do. Sometimes somebody comes in and here waters my plants because I kill plants and I really, really appreciate it. I arrive in the morning and there's a cup of coffee right waiting for me. Like these are small things that I am so appreciative of and I value those. And I make a point to express my gratitude for that. People don't leave, or they rarely leave over just money. They leave when they stop feeling seen. They leave when they have no game. They leave when they have no growth path. They leave when they have no job satisfaction.
Mhm.
So those little things can start to compound on these other things, and those become the straws that break the camel. They are the missed thank you, the meeting they were left out of, the promise that you said you were going to handle, but you didn't, the certification that you said you should get, but you never followed up on. Those are all little things that compound to overall dissatisfaction. So just as a point, there was an interesting number that I got from this Charles Schwab benchmarking survey, which if you email me and you want it, I can send it to you. It's from 2024. But it says that the best firms lose 1.6 of their people each year, 1.6% of their people each year, whereas the average is 6.9%. So what this means is the gap isn't from pay, it's how people feel on, say, a Tuesday. Like, how do they feel? Fix those Tuesdays and you protect your people from people like me who are going to come and poach them.
I
So, well, maybe not other, I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good recruiter. So you might not be safe from me unless you're a Build Good marketing client, but
On fixing the small things or highlighting the wins too, one other point that a number of advisors that we work with have told us about in recent years is they'll have, like, let's say a Slack channel, or it could be a WhatsApp group, or whatever you want, whatever tool you want to use, that's all about highlighting those little things. So if, one team member came over and showed someone how to do something on their computer, that gets mentioned. If someone gave someone a ride into work that day, that gets mentioned. All these little, gestures, whether or even big gestures, they get highlighted. They're mentioned. People are continually expressing their appreciation so that everyone can see what's going on and everyone can feel seen by the entire team. And that kind of stuff adds up over time. So I
yeah,
think that's a fantastic thing to do. Michael, who's on our call, he chimes in with a great idea. He says in his office, his assistant gets sent on a week cruise every year with her spouse. What a fantastic thing to do
that's a
to keep
great
your
perk.
talent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, excellent. No, so continuing on this vein, I know there's some other, you said three things that cost nothing, three best practices that you don't have to spend any money on, but that make a big difference. Let's go through those right now, Jenny.
Um, Say that one more time.
So the
What?
three things that cost nothing. One of the things you told me about is, noticing the good work. We've talked about that a
Oh,
little bit.
yeah.
Taking a seat at the table, care for the whole person. Let's break those down a little bit.
Okay. So there are some things that you can do that literally cost nothing, like the fridge, the food.
Mhm.
People appreciate it. There's little things like a gas card. I was working out a benefits package with a client, and one of the it was almost a deal breaker for this candidate. It was like, I have to drive so far over this mountain to get into the place.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's gonna sort of, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So I came back with a like, well, let's give you a gas allowance. How about that? And he was like, oh my gosh, that'd be so great. I would love that. I've never had a gas allowance before. 150 bucks on a gas card. Great. Done. That whole thing. And that was, that was 3 years ago. And that client is still, or that candidate is still a team member at that client's office. It
Mhm.
was just a little tiny thing, but it made such a big difference in how that candidate felt valued.
Mhm.
Like, I am so important. They're going to create a gas card for me.
Right.
So it's really sort of thinking through what what is going to provide a better life for a person on the other end. So I understand, like, we work within all kinds of budgets because you are a small business.
Mm,
So, depending on what your production is, there are constraints. There are salary constraints, there are budget constraints. There are, your firm is only going to pay 25% of this person's salary and you have to share them with somebody else. I
mm,
get that. But that doesn't mean that you can't go the extra mile to get and keep the best person possible by doing these smaller things. So another thing that you can do, especially, and this is especially important with a junior advisor coming up on the path to becoming a lead advisor, which is you give them a seat at the table.
mm,
Don't just send them in to take your notes. You give them a seat at the table and you empower them. And I hate that word and I'm so sorry, but you give them the autonomy to be able to participate. Even if you structure it in a way like these are the things you can talk about, or these are the things where I want you to contribute, you give them the opportunity to own their job.
mm,
So it's really important to provide that ability for somebody to achieve their goals. The minute you stop allowing them to achieve their goals, they're going to start looking for a place where they can. Because we all have goals. You guys have a goal to grow your business to X amount. Cool. Let's get you there. But in in other places, they have goals that they want to grow their lifestyle to this amount, or
right,
they want to earn this certification, or they want to achieve this goal. It's your job as an employer to help them get there.
right.
So that's what I mean when I say give them a seat at the table.
Mhm.
Find out what they need and want for their professional life and push them and provide the support and get them the licensing or the education or the certification or the Microsoft class or whatever it is.
Right.
Make sure it happens. And then the last part is care for the whole person. So, what I mean by that, there's obviously, as an HR, there are lines that you have to follow. You can't dig into somebody's personal life too deeply. I do all the time, but that's like whatever. But you can't, there are lines you can't cross. So, but you can be enough attuned to who they are as a human being that you can make sure that they have a little kid, make sure they get to the soccer game, make
Mm,
sure that their schedule is organized in such a way that they can leave at 4:30 or 5, or they can be there in time for pickup, or they have a mother that's on the early side of Alzheimer's. Be aware of those things so that when, in the case of one of our clients, they had a CSA whose mother had Alzheimer's.
mm,
And I found out about it and I was like, cool, let's set up the program because what's going to happen at a certain point is mom is going to take priority over job.
mhm.
So we want to be prepared for that. So it's not a big hardship for either side. Let's make it easy for her to leave when the time comes because the time will come. And let's not also collapse your whole business. So being aware of these things that are happening in people's lives can really help make a person feel cared for.
Right.
And that's valuable. When you care for your people, it's really valuable to them, to me. Like I don't want somebody in here who hates their job or who's having a really hard time with life. Like I want to be able to help them. So I
Right.
will do whatever I can to be able to provide support and, work with them through whatever happens.
Yeah, you want their job to be a buttress to their life, to support their life, not be in competition with their other priorities. Your job should
Exactly.
be enabling you to actually focus on your priorities and seize the things that you matter to you most rather than taking you away from them.
Yes.
Love that. Now, I know there are a couple other things on the retention that you want to talk about before we moved into attracting. Clear expectations, ensuring they have the proper training, a career path. So let's sort of go through what these different, phases are of ensuring people have everything they need to stay.
Okay. So this is actually something that I learned from our senior vice president of consulting, Matt Hicken.
Mhm.
This is something that he evaluates when he walks into an advisor's office to do an on-site consultation. So as you can see on the bottom of this slide, there's the compensation and the benefits. That's salary. That's table stakes at this point in the game.
Mhm.
So, like, yeah, you have a salary and you have a benefits package. That's to be expected. But where you keep them and where you keep them happy are on these 5 points. And when he told me this, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I totally agree with it. Thank you for codifying all of this for me. So the first one is clear expectations. This is not the list of bullet points. This is the list of what are you producing, what are you supposed to produce, and what does the end result look like?
Mhm.
It's very important to define what the end result looks like, because then you can work it backwards and find all the little tiny details that need to go into producing that end result. So set those clear expectations from day one.
Mhm.
And if you don't have them, that is one of the things that we help you work on. So, you might want to talk to Stephanie because she'll help you sort of decode all of this. The next part is proper training. Proper training is in this industry, it's a disaster. I mean, really, let's just call it. Firms provide a lot of training. It's all technical. It's all, this is the button you push. This is the app you submit. These are the things you have to do. Here are the requirements. Here are the regulations. All of that is well covered. What this industry does not teach well is, what do you say to a client when their dog dies?
Mhm.
How do you teach a new receptionist how to answer the phone and route properly? How do you how do you teach a junior advisor to become a lead advisor? There's expectations and there's sort of like, here's kind of the path, but what are the step by steps? What are the milestones that a junior advisor has to make in order to achieve the lead advisor status?
Right.
Those things aren't really codified and they're not really broken down in such a way that a lot of people can achieve that success. It's why we have such a terrible attrition rate in our industry. I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's because we focus so hard on the technical and the regulatory and the the things, but we don't teach how to be successful.
Mhm.
How do you teach that in a role like a CSA?
Right.
How do you teach that for a junior advisor? How do you teach that for a computer operator? How do you teach that for a relationship manager? Like, how do you teach somebody how to do this job, especially when they're just coming in straight out of college? That's not a
Right.
lot. There's not a lot of resource for that. So having the proper training in place is the next part. The third part, and this is so funny. When Matt told me this, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Is proper resources. If you hire somebody whose responsibility it is to do marketing, make sure they have the good computer to do it on with a
Mhm.
great video card. He told me the story that he was in an advisor's office and they were like, yeah, this is our new marketing director. And Matt's looking at the computer. He's like, that computer is not going to be able to do that job
Right.
at all. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess so, because we just pulled it out of the closet. And he's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. You have to provide them with all the resources. That could be a Calendly, that could be Zoom, that could be Canva or Claude AI. Whatever it is they need, you need to provide those things.
Right.
Then career path. This is especially important for anybody going through a succession because you have guys who have really done the work. They've been in the trenches. They did the cold calling. They did building the business. They did all the steps that they needed to do, and they have no idea how to duplicate that and pass it on. So what ends up happening is like, you just follow me and do what I do, but it misses that runway of experience. So
Hmm.
it's like, I expect you to do these things, but you don't get the breadth of experience that I had to go through doing 100 cold calls in an hour,
Right.
you know? So you don't necessarily know how to get to the person. You don't have that intention to get that person on the phone because you don't have all of that experience of what I went through as a rookie.
Right.
So it's really important to make sure that that career path is laid out. So it's, for example, if you have a CSA, they come in, they start as a receptionist, they see, okay, I could do that and I could help clients. I like helping clients. Oh, if I become a CSA, then I could get my licenses and then I could be a registered CSA. Oh, and that comes with a certain benefit and that comes with bonuses and that comes with
Right.
this bump. And then, oh, if I'm a registered CSA, I could either go into being a financial advisor or I could be a service advisor or I could just be an awesome CSA. So it really depends on, this is where you have to work with this person to find out A, what their goal is, but then what is your goal? What do you need out of this role?
Hmm.
And hopefully that will align. And then you'll have like a great relationship, or you'll work it out so that their goals are in alignment with whatever. So that's career path. And then the last part is fun. Like, you guys have to go out and do stuff together. Matt suggests that you go out and you do a service project, you do volunteering, because that does two things. It gets you guys working together. It builds your trusted advisor brand because you're out there doing good volunteer work. So find things that you guys can do together that creates harmony and cohesion and great times. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
All right, now let's move into attract. Actually, okay, you want to talk about red flags? I'm sorry.
okay.
So let's go through these quick, and then we'll
We'll go
move
fast.
into attract. Yeah.
Yeah. So signs that somebody's halfway out the door, their schedule shifts, their PTO pattern flips. Like, they have I take every quarter I take 2 days off and I go do the thing. Now all of a sudden they're doing something that's different. They check out. Like,
Mm.
they're always there at 11:15 and now they're gone. So where'd they go? And the biggest one is they stop their contributions.
Mm.
You generally will have somebody, when they're starting to pull back, they will stop their originations, they will stop their contributions, they will stop forwarding the motion of your business. So the best practice, and I have this in place here, is if you are thinking about leaving, come talk to me. I will help you. I know that this is something that happens. I am aware of it and I am okay with it. If it's time for you to move on, it's time for you to move on. I get that. I'm not going to try and hold you, but I would at least like the opportunity before you start looking to figure out and solve the problems that you're running into first.
Right.
And so that is my open door policy. And it people do. They come into my office and they're like, I think I want a different job. And I'm like, okay, I get it. What I can't do is do it after the fact. After the decision's been made, it's so hard to come back and be like, cool, let's fix this. Let me give you a counter offer. Let's do all of this thing, because their foot's already out the door and the decision is already made. So even if you counter it, they're already gone. And it's only a matter of time before they bounce.
Right.
So those are
Terrific.
the red flags. Yeah.
Now, sometimes we don't have the right team in place. We have to have more support. So we need to start looking at attracting more talent. So let's talk about the mistakes here. What are the mistakes advisors are making when they start looking for that next hire?
Okay. Mistakes are, you don't know the market. You got to go out. You got to know, like in New Orleans, there's a place people won't cross the bridge. They won't go into this other parish. So you have to find somebody in the parish.
Hmm.
Even though it's a 15-minute commute, they will not cross that bridge. I don't know. Atlanta, if they're in North Atlanta and they live in South Atlanta, there's no crossing that city.
Hmm.
So you have to really understand what the market is, because there are ways that you can work it to make it happen. So like, if you're in Atlanta and you found a great candidate that's in the South and you're in the North, you're going to want to increase the pay and make it worth it and sort of work out how to make the job desirable. That's mistake number one. Mistake number two is you won't pay the market. You don't go on and you look at, what is my competitor? What is Raymond James down the road paying that I'm not paying? what are their benefits? You know, I have a hard time going up against people trying to poach people from Goldman Sachs because Goldman Sachs has the best benefits package in the industry, and I cannot ever compete. And it really is upsetting that I cannot win from Goldman Sachs. Like, seriously, I can't beat their benefits package. So it's like you have to understand, what is it going to cost you to win the talent?
Hmm.
The third mistake is there are too many deal breakers. It's like I have to have this, I have to have this, I have to have this, they have to do this, and they have to do this, and they have to do this. It does not give room for a person to be a human being.
Hmm.
So you have to pick, like, what are your three deal breakers? Those are the three, and there are no more. If
Right.
you have too many, you're never going to hire. It'll never happen. And then the worst one, the absolute worst one, is the job ad. The job ad has to show your vision. It has to give a little personality. It has to show you who you are, and it has to speak to the person on the other end. Nobody reads the bullet points. Like, I'm telling you, I don't even know why we put bullet points on there other than, it's what you're supposed to do, but nobody reads them. Nobody cares. They're all the same. All the same, all the same. This is an ad that I found today on Indeed. It was like the second ad when I went in to look.
Hmm.
It's Here's the job description. This is what we're looking for. Here's all the things that we want. Nobody's going to read this ad. There's no vision. There's no passion. There's no personality. Nobody cares. You're never going to get a great candidate off of this ad
Hmm.
because it's terrible. So what you want to do is you want to stack it with, this is who I am. This is who you are. These are the things we expect. Here's what you produce. This is what we'll pay. And then all the benefits. And the longer your benefits are on your job ad, the better. Even if it's dumb stuff like we give a gym membership and we pay for your parking and we have this and we have that, doesn't matter. People like to know that you care enough about them that it's worth it.
Love that. Excellent.
So,
So oh, I'm sorry, we skipped a slide, I think. Let me go back really quick. On this job ad, and you're talking about how no one's going to read these bullet points and these responsibilities. Can you give any insights instead on what are some of are there any key phrases or words or things? You mentioned benefits and you mentioned, what they're going to get out of it. When you talk about like who I am and who you are, is there anything we can do there to make that stand out from other competitors in the field, from other advisors that will make someone go, you know what, this feels different to me, and now
yeah.
I'm interested. Any insights on that, Jenny?
Yeah. So, um, Kimmy, I can send you one. If you'll email me at the end, I have my email for you. I'll send you an ad, or the one that I have currently posted. Um, you want to tell a story.
Mm.
It's a narrative. It's a vision board. It's we are a family-owned office, and we have been in the business for 25 years, and we help people retire and send their kids to college. Now you have a picture. Oh, okay, cool. I like that. That's a good mission. That's a good goal. And then this is who you are. You are energetic. You are warm on the phone. You like to talk to people and you help. And you get satisfaction from solving problems with elderly people. Those are specific, and they speak to the person who does that. Now, all of a sudden, you've taken a huge candidate pool and you've narrowed it down. So you're saving time by filtering through, using your job ad as a filter. And now you've spoken to the person who's like, oh, that's me. I can't tell you how many times I have hired a candidate from a job ad. And the first thing they said to me is like, gosh, I read your job ad. I read the whole thing, and it defined me.
Mm.
And I was like, hey, win for me.
Yeah.
So, I do a whole interview of the advisor. And one of the things that I listen to is how they talk to me as I'm doing this interview and I'm onboarding for a hiring. And one of the things I look for is I would never, ever in a million years place somebody who speaks like they are from the deep South with somebody who is from like New York speed.
Mm.
Those two personalities, even though they might be very similar, will have a hard time communicating just because the way this person from the deep south would talk versus the person from the it's like, whoa, that's not going to happen. So when you're crafting the job ad, you really want to make sure that it has you in there because you are the person that they are hiring, that they are interviewing. They're going to be interviewing you as much as you're going to be interviewing them.
Right. So I know a number of people have chimed in wanting an example of a great job ad, and we're happy to provide that for you. All we ask is that you fill out the report card that we mentioned at the end, and then mention the job ad in the report card, and we will make sure that Jenny gets that out to you. So just stay tuned for the report card at the very end. The last question I want to ask you about the attracting, and then we're going to move finally into maximizing. You mentioned too many non-negotiables, and I hear you talk about this a lot. Can you give us some examples of what a good list of non-negotiables might be as opposed to the laundry list that no one could
Sure.
possibly ever fill?
Yeah. So hybrid schedule. That's a non-negotiable for a lot of advisors. They don't want it. They want somebody in office.
Mm,
That's fine. That's an easy resolve. I put that right on the job ad, in office only. It weeds out almost immediately people who are looking for a hybrid role.
mm,
Another one is uh, benefits can be a deal breaker on the candidate side.
mhm,
So if that is something that you will never offer, you'll never do an insurance allowance, you'll never do anything like that, then that needs to be one of your deal breakers because that has lost candidates more than a lot of other things.
mm,
Um, let's see, I mean, it's really dependent uh, on where you're located and what your market is. Like if you're in a deep a deep area where there's intense politics, you might want to consider that in your candidate. I had a candidate that I was interviewing for a advisor who had a lot of we'll call them Republican. We'll just say Republican clients.
mm.
And this person was very, very active on the other side. So I asked, like, listen, you are going to be working with people who are this way. Is that going to make you uncomfortable? And he was like, wow, yeah, it would actually. That would make me very uncomfortable. So I was like, okay, great. It's probably not the job for you. So you have to kind of figure out like what on both sides too. This is both sides. This is hiring and applying. Like what are those important things that would really make it an uncomfortable situation? So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay, let's move now into maximizing because you can have a great team in place. You've retained your talent, you've attracted top tier talent, but that doesn't necessarily mean your team is as honed as it could be in helping you grow. So let's talk about ways that we can maximize our team and turn them to someone not just supporting growth, but again, driving growth. So as always, there's mistakes that we can make. Let's go through some of those, Jenny.
Yeah. So the mistakes are you have a cat, dog, bird. This is a term my dad coined, and it's one person who does all the things.
Mhm.
When you stick to species, when you have a cat and you have a dog and you have a bird, then they all do their cat things, they do their dog things, and they do their bird things, and everything flows much easier. When you have this hybrid, it's kind of an abomination, and it gets a lot of things go wrong. Let's just call it that. Um, you box them in. So they don't have anything that's actually theirs to produce. So you have a lateral organizational chart and everybody does everything and nobody has an ownership of like my job here is to manage the talent.
Mm,
That's my job. If I'm having a lot of turnover, I am not doing my job.
right,
So you have to give them ownership over their job, over what they produce.
right.
Moving goalposts. Oh, this one kills people because
Mm.
it's like they come in expecting to do a job, and then all of a sudden it's this job, and then this job, and then this job. Oh, and here's this other job over here, and oh, here's another job over here. And you constantly move their target so they can't ever fully grab onto what they are supposed to produce.
Mm.
So they never fully get fulfilled because it's like, I did this. This is great. I have accomplished it. It's like, oh, I accomplished. Oh, now I have to go. Okay, okay, let me do that. Okay, next. Oh, good. And they never get the full, I am done. I
The
did it.
hamster wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hamster wheel. Exactly. And then finally, you don't give them a place to grow. And that's the bummer because that's the easiest one to fix
Mm.
is you put them on a path, especially if you've defined what each of the career paths are, you just roll away and away you go. And then here's your career path. Oh, you don't like this career path anymore? Cool, let's shift you over to this one. How about there?
Yeah.
Oh, great. This is great. This is so much more on the line with that do. Matt, by the way, Matt Hicken is really, really exceptional at sorting out career paths. I go to him all the time and I'm like, Matt, how do I do this? What do I do here? And he is great. So I cannot, if you guys have team problems, I would just say talk to Stephanie and get a get talk to her because he is the best. I use him for my own internally stuff. So yeah.
Fantastic. So, with that in mind, what are some things that we can do to maximize our team so they can help us grow? Well, there's a lot of different things, but some of the core best practices any advisor can do. Well, first of all, and I know you've heard this before, Jenny, from Bill, every team member needs to have their own model day. And what's more, they need to have a model day that's designed to support the advisor's model day. Now, what do I mean by a model day if that's a new term for you? A model day is a series of time blocks that are arranged in a specific order that are designed altogether to maximize the amount of work that you can do in the time you have available. So, you need to make sure your team members' model days are built with yours in mind. You may have mini days or specific time blocks throughout your day. Could just be 10 to 15 minutes long where you're set to meet with individual team members to discuss the issues and the questions they have. It could be that your team members' time blocks are scheduled so that their activities are put at times to minimize the amount of interruptions that you have. It could be always making sure someone is there to cover the phones, monitor your emails, so you are not getting pulled away from those $1,500 hours where you're meeting with clients. But everyone has to have a model day, and it has to be built on the back of your model day. Another thing you can do to maximize your team, everyone has to have clear metrics. If it's a sales or a relationship manager type role, it could be the number of outgoing calls or contacts they make in a day. If it's a service role, it could be the number of open service issues that they have or hours spent in proactive as opposed to reactive service. If it's more of an administrations or an ops role, it could be the number of weekly processes that are documented or updated. Whatever it is, everyone has to have those metrics so that they know, yes, I'm doing the things I need to be doing, and I'm continually exceeding those metrics, so I'm growing in my job and I'm supporting the business and driving growth. Another big thing is making sure that every team member has their own identity established with clients. Clients should be trained to know what everyone on your team does, and so they know exactly who to call whenever they have a specific issue or question. And it's easy to do this. It can start with something simple as you get an email from a client and they're asking for help with this. And you say, well, you know what? It's actually my assistant Jewel who takes care of this. She's going to be giving you a call in 15 minutes. Or you're talking with a client and they say, I need help on this issue. Well, you know what? It's actually Jim who handles that. Let's bring him into the office right now, and he can take care of that for you. And over time, that trains your clients to know, I don't need to talk to the advisor. I want to call Jim or I want to call Jewel because I know that this is going to get handled much more quickly and efficiently if I do that. And then your clients and prospects should be hearing from your team, not just once a year when they come in for a review, but they should be present at all events to meet with clients. They should be featured in your quarterly newsletter. What are they up to in their personal lives? When a team member does something for a client, the client should know about that and it should be highlighted. So having that personal identity. And part of that can be what Jenny mentioned earlier. Put them in the room on meetings. Have them have a seat at the table. They're not just in the background, they're an active part of your client's financial plans and financial journeys. One thing you could do, I think, is a really cool idea. We got this from Huda Capital in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. They have a process improvement committee where a number of different team members, without the advisor, meet every single month to look at the processes the team has, both on the ops side and also on the growth side. How can we improve this? What can we do to make this better? What do we need to add? What do we need to take out? And so they're taking ownership of what the business is doing to create more $1,500 an hour $1,500 hours for the advisor. Have a script book. One of the things that Scott Ferguson, one of our top clients in Mississippi, does is he has a book where everyone is trained on exactly what to say and what to look for under certain circumstances. So if there's market volatility, anyone who talks with the client would be able to answer what's going on in the markets and why it matters and what you should be thinking and feeling in the same voice that the advisor does. In part of this book, it's learning to see what kind of triggers are there. So if a client mentions that they're going out fishing next weekend, they know, okay, they love fishing. I'm going to ask who they're going fishing with so I can get those names, put it into the CRM along with an interest of fishing. That might be a client event later on, and those could be referrals or introductions later on. So having that script book so that every team member can speak with the advisor's voice, see with the advisor's eyes, and hear with the advisor's ears. It's a fantastic way to make sure they are driving referrals and found money and all those opportunities that you want. And then finally, give them ownership of marketing activities and campaigns. I remember working with one computer operator years ago who she wanted more things to be able to do. So the advisor gave her control over one of their mailing campaigns. And it was, you're running this, you're monitoring how well it's working, you're figuring out ways we can improve it. She did that. And as a result, that campaign began drawing more and more and more engagement, began getting more and more prospects into the door. Eventually, that computer operator actually became the marketing director for the entire team. So give your team members ownership of specific growth initiatives and let them figure out how they can improve on them and how they can use it to better drive your own growth. So obviously, lots of things you can do, but those are just a few of the ways that you can maximize your team so they're driving growth and not merely supporting it. Jenny, anything you want to add there before we move on to the report card?
No, I just want to answer one question. Steve asked about how many people take me up on my open door policy on they're looking for a job.
Hmm.
Most people do. I don't, there's very few people that I'm surprised by that they're leaving. And oftentimes I will, if it's kind of like there's nowhere else you can grow here, I will help them find a transition out too. So I keep it very, very open so that I'm not surprised. Like, who wants to be surprised with a 2 week notice? Nobody wants that.
Yeah,
So I am very open to having the conversation.
excellent. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that question.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, we're out of time. So much more we could talk about this topic, but
I
we did
know.
promise you a number of goodies, and we want to give you access to that now. So, to get your goodie bag, which includes your loyalty gap calculator, your team red flag rubric, and your going rate tool, all things that Jenny covered earlier, all you have to do is scan the QR code on the screen or visit bgmtips.com/advantage. That'll take you to the report card. Only takes about a minute to fill out. And once you've done that, and you can also mention that you would like to receive a copy of a good job ad from
Yeah.
Jenny, that'll take you right to the goodie bag and you can get your hands on these tools. Make sure you use them because they really are fantastic.
And I'm so proud. I really want feedback. I really want you guys to tell me, like, yeah, this is really cool. It was really helpful. I use it a lot because this is what I do. But I want to know if it's helpful for you guys as well, because I'll keep building this. I love this stuff. It's great. My
Right,
favorite thing.
absolutely.
So
Excellent. Uh, yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time. Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences and your insights. I thought this was fantastic.
thank you.
And thank you to everyone who stayed with us and joined us for today's webinar. We'll leave this up on the screen just a little bit longer. And finally, remember, if there's anything we can do to help you with your own team maximization, whether it's helping you find the perfect candidate, whether it's helping you ensure that every one of your team members is trained and optimized to their fullest capability, or finding ways that we can be helping you with all the different spokes in the wheel, please keep us in mind. Give Stephanie Peterson a call, talk to her, see how we can help you best. We're always looking to help more and more advisors double their own business or work half as much. And obviously, the team is such a huge part of that. So, Jenny, anything last you'd like to add before we end today?
I just want to say thanks. Thanks for giving me this time. Your hours are very valuable, and I appreciate that you spent yours with me. I really am thankful. So
Terrific.
thank you.
So get the goodie bags, visit bgmtips.com/advantage. Let us know how we can help you. And then from all of us here at Bill Good Marketing, thank you very much again, and we'll see you on next month's webinar.